There was always a reaction, and most often it was the opening of their eyes. I did not expect that. I don't know what I expected.
Welcome to the Energy Healing Podcast, exploring stories, practices, and science. I'm your host, Leila Briggs, and this is your space to explore the art and science of energy healing in all its forms. Today with me, I have Elizabeth Smith. She is a healing touch practitioner as well as a sound healer, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know her over the last few years and have found in our random meetings that she's very knowledgeable and very wise, but also very compassionate. And I am excited to have Elizabeth here with me today.
And I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
So let's get started. So, how were you introduced to energy medicine?
I would say early 2000s, I was doing some work through two men in New Jersey. I lived there for many years, and they offered a 2-year shamanic apprenticeship. And so that was more or less my official start.
And then did you find healing touch while you were studying shamanism, or did that come afterwards?
Strangely, or not so strangely, but interestingly, our very first class, there was a young woman, and I was living in Jersey at the time for a while and had been in Delaware. And when she was getting ready to leave or something that day, I said, "Where do you live?" And she said, "Delaware." And I was like, "Oh, why don't you just stay with me?" And that happens to be someone we mutually know. And we became close friends and still to this day are. And she said, as she sometimes will do, "I invite you to try Healing Touch," which I was not aware of, didn't know it, hadn't heard of it in any way up until that point. Reiki a little bit and things like that. So that's how I got started with Healing Touch, urging from a new friend.
And so, what did you think when you started Healing Touch?
It's very interesting. Leaving the career that I did, I wish I had known more of it, I would say, in that formal setting when I was still working. But I think this little part of me was always had a little thread of the energetic in a little more subtle way, I guess, with making eye contact and body mimicry and things like that, and really being present, I guess, is what it boils down to. So yeah, so finishing the apprenticeship program, and our teachers urged be situated with one modality and be entrenched in it until you're settled and comfortable, and then you can add something. And so gradually I began to add healing touch to my shamanic practices. And I had begun doing hospice work during that time too. So that's when I started bringing instruments to hospice visits. And then as time went by, I started bringing a table and offered healing touch and sound both to patients as well as their family members. And used a little bit of the model that we were using at the time at the Healing Touch group, where the days of caring fit in. We started to do that in the nursing homes. And then I started inviting some of my Healing Touch friends to do some things as well. And of course, the sound.
So, I have a couple questions here.
Okay.
So, in shamanism, is it, or the type of shamanism you studied, was musical instruments already part of that?
Yes, predominantly drums, rattles, and then some indigenous type of instruments that could have been made out of like leaves and things like that. And just that sense of shaking up, gathering energy, releasing energy, finding energy, that kind of thing, and locating it. We did like body scan kind of things in a shamanic way as well. So that it really has a lot of, they have very similar components in many ways, healing touch and shamanic practices.
And so you went where I was going next, which is, did you feel like it blended and complemented each other? And it kind of sounds like they did.
They did, but it took me time. It took me time. And listening to those wisdom keepers that I worked with, you don't need to include everything, every instrument that you've ever touched, kind of thing, and what lends itself well. And yeah, I listened. I was a student for a long time, and it took me a while to be comfortable to bring it into healing touch in general. Also, because another element that I hadn't thought, it's people's reactions to it as well. So it was, go tread gently in what I brought and what I offered. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was coming to my mind is as a practitioner trying to find those natural and organic moments where you can introduce sound
Mm,
and it encourages the process to keep moving versus jar the patient or client.
yes.
I feel like
Yes.
that's an art in itself, probably.
It's a big learning curve. And luckily I worked with one of the hospices I work with primarily. They gave me carte blanche to do things. And then you became members of families because some
Mm.
people were in hospice for years, and those people are still my friends, surviving members of the family. But I started to experiment with the instrument. So, for example, I have a crystal pyramid, not too big, and it makes a very gentle sound. And a lot of people were in more of a comatose state. Not all, but most of them usually were. And I started to see what if any reaction I was getting from them. And there was always a reaction, and most often it was the opening of their eyes,
Mm.
which was startling at first. I did not expect that. I don't know what I expected. But that's what their eyes would open and they would, kind of watch me. I wouldn't get language or anything. But so I knew something was going on, knowing that hearing is the last sense we maintain.
Mm. Wow.
And
So, thinking about that, do you find that there are any specific techniques and like you just mentioned a specific instrument, any specific techniques and instruments that pair really well together?
yes, when once I do a scan, whether that's pendulum or hand scan or both, and getting a sense of where I need to go, and the person, I just get a sense of, I think we need to, especially if grounding, it seems to be indicated, I'll go with the lower tones. I'll go with the metals, so gongs and metal bowls, and I have some chime-like instruments. They don't look or sound like what we would think of as a yard chime, but bells from places like Burma that you hit
Mm.
make a low sound. So that's an example. And then other people who, after a scan, there's not a lot seemingly going on in the upper portion, those chakras. Then I will include like a little bit of a higher pitch with more crystals, more of the small crystals, like the pyramid. And then I have something called a practitioner's bowl, and it has a handle, and it looks like a bowl with a handle on it, but all crystal. And you hit that and hold it over an area. It literally does vibrate the body, which is really nice. If that answers your question.
I wasn't planning on asking that question, but then as you were speaking, it came to me. And I'm glad that I asked it because I never really thought, oh yeah, like lower tones may be grounding, higher tones may be like the higher vibratory or the higher vibrational chakras. And then as you're saying it, I'm like, oh yes, of course, that makes sense.
Yeah. You come to learn that though. It's just over time and patience.
Mm. Well, and then I'm thinking back, like we were very lucky for a short time, which I know you were part of, to have a chapter where we could explore healing touch and other healing modalities.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I remember one of our meetings included sound healing. And what I remember laying on the table regardless of whether the instruments were over top of me or not, was feeling a
Mhm.
full body vibration. And I could tell my
Yeah.
system was shifting and
Mm.
adjusting. It was very powerful.
Yeah, they really can be. And there's some techniques with gongs, which are really incredible. I like to work with a partner doing it, and you create a gong tunnel. So with a full body, yeah, that's something very special. But so you're reaching it from here, and then the sound and the waves are going back out. Wouldn't just do that on any old body, though. Lead
I,
people to that.
it sounds very powerful, though.
Yeah.
And what goes through my mind is I would imagine that also has the possibility to lead to a major release or an emotional release, because just
Yeah.
even the thought of that
Mhm.
type of sound and vibration being through your whole system like that.
It is lovely too, and then if you can, I'd like to put instruments on people if the situation seems to call for it or they're open. Nothing too heavy, except people who come after a while. You could put a house on them and they'd be okay. But a bowl in the heart on the heart chakra area is just fabulous.
Hmm.
So wonderful.
So you started with shamanism,
I did.
merged into healing touch, and then merged into sound healing, which was like a blend of your shamanism, right?
Yes.
Okay, now did you do any training for your sound healing, or is that all coming from your shamanism background?
No, I did additional training with gongs. I believe gongs was the first instrument I really did a training with, because other things one can use and you don't need intense training. It's great to practice them, but you certainly can hold a chime and do some things with that. But yeah, it was just an unusual thing. I was at some kind of gathering. It was a friend of mine. She had a studio there, I think, in this. But anyway, so you got to experience different things. So you moved from person to person. It was a fun thing. And there was a young woman there who's now my yoga teacher, but she was playing a small gong just as background music for that particular segment that I was doing. And then when it was over, I'm like, so what do you do when you're not sitting on a floor playing a gong? What's that all about? And it just so happened that coming weekend they were doing a sound training in Kennet. So that's how I started. And that man has gone, he now travels the world. He's an incredible gong master. So I try to follow him when I can. He lives now in Pittsburgh, but he's not there very often because he's traveling. But yeah, so that was my first structured. And then from there, I found teachers in New York State and I studied at Omega, Menla. They're all up in like the Woodstock area. Of course, they're in Woodstock. And Sage Academy, which is based in Woodstock. I've gotten some of my instruments from her because these are not things you typically would order on Amazon. So I went there and met her when I was looking for instruments that I could carry to hospice.
Mm.
Met her and got involved with her trainings. And then offshoots of there, I worked with other masters that I met there. There's a man, his name is Peter Bloom, and he does a lot of toning and works with Shruti box,
Mm.
so I learned that. And working with the voice, which I'm still working with. That's still my challenge. Tuning forks, John Boya, and he's up in that area in Stone Ridge, and he offers over the year, he offers trainings.
So you've taken all this wisdom then, all these classes, all this knowledge you've gained, and you really took your time to learn everything, it sounds like, moving through shamanism, moving through healing touch, and then moving into sound healing. Where has it all led you now in the present moment?
Oh, I have always had a vision in my head, not always, but for a very long time, that I wanted a place for particularly women to gather and to offer this service that's just so lovely. And I guess a bunch of years ago, I was meeting people through just different events that I had gone to, not just Healing Touch, but other things that I was interested in. even tarot cards, and the people you meet at some of these events they all are very interesting and shift in a different way. And so I started to take, with the encouragement from those close to me, and take my show on the road a little bit, as it were. So there was certain people who've really helped me out, and I've literally packed the car with my instruments, and now with help from good friends. And I've done concerts in barns, outdoors. I've done them in churches, yoga studios, things like that. And it was lovely. However, in people's homes, that was always interesting. And, but I wanted a place. I didn't want to keep spending more time like lugging things around, and not that I didn't like it. And I still have things scheduled to do, but I wanted a place where they could be out on display. So I started doing some at my house, but I really wanted a spot. And that was a new challenge, finding a spot where, for a lot of reasons, affordability, accessibility, and cost. And so that was the biggest challenge, finding a place where I would fit. And found this place that I'm currently in just a freak thing. I was coming back from my daughter's, and I was kind of getting a little disillusioned because I couldn't find anything. They would all be too tiny or too gigantic or way too costly or too far. But I wasn't going to give up. And so I pulled into this parking lot. I don't even know why I did. About 2 miles from my daughter's house and about 3 miles from my house. And I just started looking around, and there's a sign for a lease up in the window. That's where I am now. I'm behind the window now. So with the help of my family, particularly my daughters and some good friends, but mainly my daughters in the physical space, we made lists. We picked what could we do, because it's an office building. But there's a yoga studio downstairs, and it's mostly women-owned businesses in the building I'm in. Anyway, so I wanted to reflect me and places I've been and people who are important to me. So it's got little bits, little items of people in here that I love. I wanted it to be welcoming and just not cluttered in any way. I wanted everything to be soft, and we put it all together. A handyman came my way, and he came in and hung everything. The person who rented the building to me even lowered the rent.
Oh, wow.
I was going to ask that because where I am now is larger than I originally was looking at, but I really wanted this one. But I didn't. It was too much for me. I didn't even say that to him. And his son said, "I think you should go look at that room again. I think that's better." And I said, "Oh, okay." I'm like, yay! So it all fell into place, which is really great. And you've been here, seen it. So it's like touches of everybody. It's got some nice crystals in it, and like a little crystal grid.
So the name of your business is Soul Stirring Sounds.
Yeah.
How did you find that name?
I've always I've always been a lover of alliteration and vocabulary. When I was many years ago, when I was first teaching, I had to wear many hats. And when I became gifted, they used to call it gifted and talented, which is a horrible term, probably. I wanted to look for something. So the key for the book part of it became words. And my students carried around thesauruses, the sauri, and I would catch them in the hallway and I'd say a word and they'd quick look it up. Anyway, so I was always into alliteration and words. And soul stirring was always a word in my head, always. I would either say stellar or soul stirring. That's where it came from. And then when the business started, there was like no question in my mind. So soul stirring sounds.
So I have been to your office, and I
Yes.
haven't had the opportunity to tell you this yet, but I was planning on telling you this. I'm just going to use the podcast to tell you this.
Okay.
You know that I'm very intuitive and empathic, and a lot of my work, my personal work, but also in helping families that have highly intuitive children, has really been about filtering some of the overload of information that you get so that you can function a somewhat normal life.
Right.
I went to your office and spent some time there, and we got to visit. And the first thing that I registered when I walked out of your office and went back to my car was I didn't have to sit there and clear myself. I didn't have to sit there and do a check-in. I didn't have to, and I remember sitting in the car for half a second and going, wow, this is different. This is really different. And it's even more odd because when you think about it, you are in an office space.
Yes.
So you would assume that you wouldn't walk out like that, but I did. So it's either your magic or the magic of your space or the combination of both. But it's very much a sacred, separate world, I think, because I walked out feeling, wow, this is different. I don't know that I've felt that recently where I don't have to clear myself. I don't have to recenter myself. I don't have to check my filters. Like I was good to go.
That's one of the highest compliments I've gotten. So I'll share this with you. My daughter, my youngest daughter, when I was with her this weekend, we just were talking about things, and sometimes a little self doubt comes in. And she said to me, "Okay, you love journals. Open one of those journals, and every time someone gives you a compliment, write it down."
Oh, that's a great idea.
No, but it reminded me of something back in my teaching days. I won't even say what it was called because it's not the best term now, but you would write it down and put it in your file cabinet back when you had file cabinets. And when you were having a bad day as a teacher, a not so good day, you just go in there and rifle through those little notes on post-its or index cards. So it's very similar. She's very wise anyway, my daughter. Yeah. They both are. And my son too, although he has a different view of what I'm doing. I'm glad you said that because that's one of the things I really was striving for, a place that was filled with good energy and comfort.
Now you mentioned something, so I want to take a half a step back because we didn't get to talk about it. Your teaching.
Oh, yeah.
And we really didn't get to talk about your education and your teaching years. And I know that in hindsight for you, you've shared that when you look back, music was finding its way, even then, finding its way into your life working with the kiddos.
Yes, it was. It was. So when I first started teaching, anyone who was atypical was not really welcome in the schools. And when I came in, children were just starting to be in the public school. But you couldn't participate where I worked. They couldn't participate in anything with the school population. So we left this classroom, but we never left to be with the rest of the school. We didn't have gym, we didn't have art, we didn't have any of those lovely things. So I had a partner teacher. She had the classroom next door to me, and we decided we were figuring it out. So it was literally, we really had no supplies. Music made its way in. The arts we found a dancer who came in and volunteered her time and taught both boys and girls how to dance on the stage. And we started our own track team and whatnot. Principal built the furniture, things that you don't hear about today. And then I became very interested to find ways to focus kids. We started using music, and it was mainly for focus for them or to calm them down. And headsets were something that we would sometimes use individually or in groups, like the whole classroom. And I did a lot of work with it was mostly the classical music. So one for creativity and another artist for relaxation, settling down. So that's how I started with the music in the schools. And I just continue that. I did it in my office when I moved into administration too, same thing. I wouldn't be playing an instrument for anybody, but I would always have it in the background. And I grew to understand how impactful it could be. Yeah, that's where I guess it really started. I didn't come from a musical family or anything like that, but when you don't have much to offer the students, you find ways, as teachers do.
Right. One of the things I find really fascinating, both with myself, but also hearing other healers' stories, is when they start doing the reflection piece of healing work, they look back on their life and all of a sudden they realize they've been doing it their entire life in little ways.
Yes, until you pay attention and sit
Right.
with it. In my case, recently, we would do a little bartering in our circle, and a new member of my little cast of people is a hypnotist. So we were bartering our services, and I finally had to stop her. I said, I can't hold any more information because she had me back in time, which is not where I intended to go. It was something else I asked for, and we didn't go there at all. And I was like, I don't want to talk about this. It's too much to remember. But it just reminded me that's how I started to reflect on where it all began. Like, where did this come from?
Right.
I never played an instrument in my schooling.
It is kind of amazing seeing those journeys unfold and then having the hindsight and the reflection to then be able to look at it and be like, wow, I really haven't been that far off my pathway.
It's extraordinary. And in many venues, an example of something that was, it's funny, it even sounds funny, but a friend of mine who lives upstate New York, one of my former teachers invited us. He said, oh, we're going to do not a lot of work with the voice, mostly the voice that night and some instruments, but we did it on a porch on a regular street, and so you get the trains going by, the children are playing outside, and anytime anything happened, they're like, and the train, and they would include what was going on in the music or in their voice or whatever. And it was another message to me, like, it's everywhere, and it doesn't matter if something else enters. We can block it out or we can include it.
I was going to my own personal place reflecting on that, and I do find that as I do these interviews, I am so deeply inspired and amazed by some of the stories that are unfolding that people share, but also at how dedicated and talented everyone is. And I walk away with every interview having something of my own to sit there and reflect with. So what came to me is I've always had the view of spirit is spirit never actually goes away. It's here around us all the time, but you have autonomy as to whether you choose to see it and interact with it or not. And that's part of the co-scription. That's part of the magic and part of the beauty. And so when I hear you describing that moment and including what's happening naturally around you, it's like that can be part of the music.
And I think it also it enriches our emotional memory too.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's so important. And that's a big component of what I do. I'm trying to have people who come and leave with an emotional memory.
Before I let you go, can I ask a little bit of a silly question? And if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to.
Okay, sure.
For our listeners who don't know, Lisa and I put together a whole list of questions, and these were meant to inspire our guests. And at the end, we have one that's a little bit more playful, a couple questions that are a little bit more playful. But since I have a sound healer in front of me,
Yeah.
can I ask you if you had to pick a theme song for healing, what would you pick?
Oh, a theme song for healing.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I'm clueless. A theme song for my general being has been for the longest time. I'm Still Standing by Elton John.
I love that. I love that.
But for healing, Lord, I don't even, my mind is totally blank now.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my God.
I think I'm Still Standing works.
It does. The other song that I really like that might fit is Stevie Wonder, Isn't She Lovely? I know.
Oh, yeah.
Those are two that pop into my head.
Yeah. Well,
I'll do
thank you.
I'm going to do research when I get off this call.
Well,
You and Nixa.
I ask the kids that too sometimes. Like the kiddos I work with,
Yeah.
I'll say, okay, if you had to pick a theme song for your root chakra, what would the theme song be?
Mhm.
And it's guaranteed to get a couple giggles and laughter. So,
Yes.
but
Yeah. And a little divergent thinking in there.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you.
I wish you the best of luck with your business. And thank you for listening to the Energy Healing Podcast. To To learn more, access show notes, or explore additional resources, visit our podcast page at healingtouchprogram.com.